Energy prices have been a really hot topic for discussion, but until now, the main impact has always been in the future. However, for many organisations, it's this term when these costs are really going to bite. Firstly, during the autumn and winter term and that heating season, energy use in our organisations is much greater. And secondly, we know that many fixed energy deals are coming to an end this term, meaning that from September and October, the actual price inflation is coming through. In this short video, Jonathan Coyles and I are going to look at the current energy market in context, highlight the opportunities for making savings, and run through what immediate actions organisations can take prior to the new heating season to mitigate the impact of these rising energy costs. And we'll close with reviewing some of the longer term strategies that can be employed, but inevitably some of these need time, resource and funding to implement. There is, however, a huge amount that can be done through minor interventions, maintenance, housekeeping and behavioural change which cost little to nothing. We'll also signpost towards the end some further resources, including our energy efficiency checklist and guidance on how to commission a review of your heating control systems, which is often complicated and off-putting for many organisations.
Thanks, Rob. What we're going to be looking at here is how the energy price has changed over the last 18 months. We can see back at the beginning of 2021, the price for gas was 48 pence a therm and the price for electricity was £56 a megawatt, and we can see that has really changed, and there's been a range of spikes over the last 2 years, with some significant spikes in October and November 2021, and then again in February and March 2022. The peak of both of those utilities reached £5.20 a therm, so almost over 1,000% increase in the February 2021 price, and in electricity it was 950% increase at £532 a megawatt. That has a substantial impact clearly on what you were paying for electricity and gas, and the real challenge is that if you're not being in a long-term contract, you're seeing that you're being exposed to those prices today. We're not seeing it calming down. We're seeing obviously that the peaks of February and October have lowered down to prices in the last couple of weeks have been around about £2.95 a therm and 272 pence a megawatt. That obviously is a reduction on the peaks, but it's still 500%, 600% increase on where you were in 2021. The prices are where they are, but not everyone has been affected equally by the changes. So a number of our clients have contracts that are running into 2023, so are still paying the energy price they were paying in 2021. A number of clients procured their energy in 2019, and they've now come to the cliff edge of those contracts coming to an end. So not everyone has been affected equally. Again, how old your buildings are. Some buildings are energy efficient, some buildings are not, and some are great with gas because they've got simple controls of on-off switches, whereas others have got complicated BMS systems which people don't know how to use and are burning 20% of their energy when there's no one in the building overnight, and that becomes a real challenge of how you manage those processes. Again, we've got clients that have invested in renewables, so are buying 25% of their energy at a fixed price for 25 years of 6 or 7 pence a kilowatt hour. So again, not everyone is being affected equally with the increases that we've seen over the last 2 years.
So with all of this in mind, what can organisations actually do? What is the approach? Well, first of all, I think we've got to look at the cost of doing nothing and whether this is actually an option. And what we'll demonstrate shortly is that there's a huge opportunity cost of not starting now with doing some of these quick wins, and the impact of doing nothing can really ramp up significantly over time. So it's important to make a start, even if it's just to do some of these quick wins. Firstly, you can look at your procurement, and obviously buying right and buying green is an effective way of reducing your carbon emissions and environmental impact. But the way that the energy market has been recently, is virtually impossible to buck that trend, and certainly an effective procurement policy will help, but it's not going to completely mitigate or isolate you from the inevitable global energy price rises that we've all seen. So really what you're then left with is looking at reducing consumption, and we're going to look at the opportunities for just simply switching things off, and looking at other ways that we can reduce our energy consumption, particularly over the autumn and winter seasons. And then we'll also look at the opportunities for investing for the future in longer term solutions, such as generating your own electricity, and doing larger infrastructure projects that can help. Finally, one of the things that's going to be most effective in the short term is to engage with building owners and users in terms of initiating behavioural change and seeing how that can actually impact your energy costs in the very short term.
Clearly, the decarbonisation journey that the UK government has set the public sector on is going to help with the energy price squeeze. If we aim to reduce our carbon footprint by 50% from 1990 levels by 2035, then you'll reduce 50% out of the energy cost and protect against future price increases. What we can see in a lot of the data is that a substantial amount of the energy consumed in the school context is consumed out of hours. In this illustration, we can see that around about 40% of the energy consumption is when the students are in the building, and 60% when there are no students in the building. So if we reduce that out of hours consumption that by 50%, you're going to be saving around about 30% of your overall energy bill. And this is where controls and the housekeeping methodology can come into place. This isn't about big capital investment. This is about just understanding when you're consuming energy and learning when to switch it off. We've undertaken some research into the carbon footprint of 350 academy trusts using their streamlined energy carbon reporting data for the 2020-21 academic year. And what we've seen, that if we look at the removing the gas consumption from the closed period, so around about 24% of their gas consumption from 5,200 schools, the annual saving for those schools and those trusts will be £45 million. Again, if we look at reducing the electricity consumption for the non-open hours of the schools, again, that will look at being a saving of around about 96 million. So taking 30% out of the consumption would save the schools over £96 million in the next financial year. The £140 million of savings are big numbers for those 350 academy trusts, but what does it really mean for an individual school? And what we've seen with energy prices being around about 45 pence for electricity and 19 pence for gas potentially, that an energy bill for a typical primary school could be between £80,000 and £120,000 this year, and for a secondary school between £300,000 and £400,000. Huge changes in what schools have been paying in recent years. But looking at the savings we're talking about, we're looking at the savings being potentially up to £30,000 in a primary school and up to £100,000 in a secondary school. So then savings that can really make an impact in the day-to-day operations of an academy or a school. So we've looked at the data, and let's look at actions. So before you start on your journey, try and understand your data in the same way as we've just gone through it. Look at where you are using your energy consumption at the moment. You might be in a better place than the examples we've shown. We have seen some schools where the mix is more on a 50-50 basis of open hours and other consumption periods. But until you know where you are, you don't know how you're going to go on that journey. But first of all, when you you've got that data, look at your controls, look at when your time clocks are set, look that you know of how you are using your building, and does that match against how your heating is programmed. It's key to understand when you are in the building and when your heating is coming on and when it's going off. So please do look at those control settings. There's a whole range of people who can provide you with support around that. Talk to your BMS companies, talk to your M&E support contractors and things like that, and get them to work with you on ensuring that your operational patterns of the school match the programmed systems. Again, temperature heating, looking at hot water, looking at the heating temperature to make sure you can take 1 or 2 degrees potentially out of each of the systems. You might be able to take 5 or 10 degrees out of your hot water system, but look at those temperature settings and make sure that you are minimizing the temperature settings that are there. Don't heat the whole building for one classroom. If there's a problem in one area, try and deal with the problem rather than heating the whole building to deal with those issues that might be a problem for one specific classroom or one specific office in a school. IT equipment, you're going to have lots of pieces of IT equipment across your estate, ensuring that they're switched off, ensuring there's controls and processes put in place to switch off energy consumption in the IT platform. Looking at your server rooms, they don't need to be any colder than 24 degrees centigrade, and have that conversation with your IT team or your IT contractor to make sure that the settings are correct for the equipment that you have. And again, you need to look at lighting and making sure it's switched off when it's not in use. And primary schools are really good at doing that, but secondary schools need to think that if the classroom's empty for 25% of the curriculum time, that the lighting isn't on all day. So start to think about those sort of things, looking at sports on lighting and external lighting, which are high consumers of energy. The final piece of advice in relation to some action is just looking at the default settings and operational hours. I touched on the previous slide looking at what the default settings are, and here's just some quick key points for you to take away and look at in relation to your heating systems, your hot water systems. Again, the temperature setting points, again, just adjusting it by a degree or two can make a real difference in the energy consumption patterns. Looking at the operational hours that you're setting the hot water, heating, kitchen ventilation to. Think about how they really reflect on your day-to-day operational challenges, and you might want to tweak those, but this is just some initial thoughts of where might be the starting point, that then you might have to go back. If you've got an older building and the heating's a bit tired, you might need the heating to come on at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, but the rest of the week 7 o'clock's great. But these sort of things just to think about and consider when looking at the quick wins over in preparation for the winter season.
Thanks, Jonathan, and hopefully you can see there are some really quick and low-cost steps that can be taken in the short term to make a very meaningful and real impact on your energy costs and your carbon emissions in light of the current energy crisis situation we find ourselves in. However, as we highlighted at the beginning, doing nothing is not an option, and this is going to be part of a long-term process. Your energy saving and decarbonisation and sustainability strategy is going to be something that is ongoing over a period of months and years as we all move towards our targets of net zero. And although some of these short-term solutions are very useful and necessary, and it is an imperative to make a start on those straight away, in order to make the biggest changes, there are going to be some larger interventions required, which are going to involve quite large infrastructure projects and larger schemes. And we've done some sessions on this in the past. However, just to sort of reiterate at the back end of this session, what those main features are. Firstly, photovoltaics or solar panels are a critical way of helping you generate your own electricity on site. A typical school can generate about 25% of their electrical demand at the moment through solar PV, and that will only increase as the economics around battery storage improve. Solar PV in the current market is likely to pay for itself between 3 and 5 years, with a return on investment of around 400%. It's a really compelling case, both from a business case in terms of cost savings, but also in terms of insulating you from the future rises in energy costs over the next 20 to 25 years. The second big project that you should be thinking about, if you haven't done already, is changing your lighting. Lighting makes up the largest sort of proportion of your electrical demand and cost within a typical school, and so changing your light fittings from old-fashioned fluorescent tubes, for example, to new efficient energy saving LED technology can have a really huge impact on your lighting costs and overall electrical costs. Typically, for every £100,000 invested in LED lighting, will generate almost double the amount of savings over the lifetime of that sort of installation, and that's assuming an installation of perhaps only 10 years. The likelihood is that those will last much longer than that. There are also huge added advantages to LED lighting replacements, such as the improvement in lighting quality and the reduced maintenance requirements of those fittings compared to traditional bulbs and tubes. Finally, looking at heating and hot water systems and hot water controls, we've touched upon some of the settings and optimization of those systems in the previous slide. However, there are some larger interventions that can be made, perhaps by automating some of these processes and introducing sort of smart, intelligent controls into our building services that will cost a bit of money, but will also have a compelling payback, and even down to the simplicity of installing thermal insulation to both our building fabric and heating plants and equipment is a really quick way of saving energy. So installing pipework insulation, valve jackets and the like can all have a huge impact, and all of this is taking us on the next step towards our targets for net zero. So I hope you found this session useful, and it's prompted a few potential activities and actions that you can take, and perhaps an opportunity to review some of the settings and procedures and systems that you have in your organisations to minimise the energy demand that you've got, and recognise that there are some things in the short term that don't require a lot of money to make a difference and help to mitigate this huge energy cost rise that's upon us at the moment. In terms of formalising this and putting some more meat on the bones, we have actually produced at Barker an energy efficiency checklist, and we've also produced a controls optimization scope or brief, which is something that you could give your mechanical or heating contractors to discuss with them if you need professional help for more advanced systems or larger scale interventions, what you actually need from them in order to carry out a site-wide review of your heating controls. And if you'd like a copy of those, they're free of charge and they can be downloaded from our website. And if you just click on the either go to our website or click on the QR code at the bottom of this presentation slide, that should take you straight to that part of the website. And actually, if you would like to discuss your organisation, issues and challenges that you're facing, look at specific opportunities for energy saving initiatives or any of the projects that we've discussed, or what funding opportunities might be available, then please feel free to contact either myself or Jonathan Coyles directly, and our contact details are on the slide. Thank you very much for watching.